do you think of the recent results of by-election in Sibu? Thank you.
It's a very wide question and a very loaded question. It depends on which side of the political fence, you know.
I'm independent, Raja.
What do I think, meaning my opinion on the results, or meaning my opinion on how the elections was conducted, or what?
The general question about the future of Malaysia, because the result, which I think is a good result.
Well, actually it's a very disappointing result for both sides. It's disappointing for Barisan because never before has a Prime Minister had to go down to the field so many times to campaign in a mere by-election. It's disappointing because he made a deal with the Chinese voters that he'll give them 5 million on Monday if on Sunday Barisan gets elected, and Barisan did not get elected. So he's not going to give the 5 million after all. It's also disappointing because there was a lot of discrepancies, and the Election Commission just doesn't want to entertain. How can they announce, in fact Utusan Malaysia announced election results at 10:13 p.m. and the number of votes totaled up tallies with the number of voters who came out to vote, which was already tallied earlier, 59%. And then suddenly they announced new results where there's 2,000 extra voters. There's also the postal votes, where the number of votes in the bag was more than the number of people who voted. Somehow a few votes beranak along the way, you know. After 5 days of being locked up in the box. Why did they need to announce the postal votes long after the results were out? Whereas the postal voting was done 5 days earlier, which they could have counted earlier. So there's just so many things. And something that was not reported but was reported by our boys on the ground is during the counting of the votes, there was a power failure. The whole of Sibu suffered a short power failure. And so I got a call, say, hey, the whole of Sibu darkness, power failure. So, you know, in a power failure, things happen. That's how Tengku Razali and Musa Hitam lost the UMNO elections during the power failure, you know. So there's just so many things. And you see, the fact that this is being done openly, blatant, nobody is embarrassed about it anymore. It shows that they just don't care. I mean, at least in the past when they cheat, they hide the cards under the table. Today when they cheat, they hold the cards in their hand and you can see them cheating. And they say, yeah, so what? What are you going to do about it, you know? And I think this is a throwback of, what was it, the year 2000, I think it was at that time. 2000, yeah, 2000. About a year after the 99 general elections, 10 years ago. When we went to meet the Election Commission, at that time was Rashid, and so we had a thick book, you know, a real thick book. And this was our proposal for electoral reforms. And there were so many things we wanted done 10 years ago. And one of the first things we wanted was remove the postal votes. I mean, look, every by-election, Ulu, Selangor, you name it, you know, Sibu, it's all, you win or lose depends on these postal votes. So the postal votes is the first thing that has to go. And I think Sibu has, without any doubts, proven this argument, the postal votes have to go. And 10 years ago, we wanted it removed. And Rashid said, no. If we remove the postal votes, if we abolish the postal vote system, not a single minister will be in office. I mean, at least he's honest in his dishonesty. He admits they need postal votes so that all the ministers can stay in office. Then we ask him the second question. How can you give us that kind of reply? I mean, at least you want to cheat, pretend you're not cheating lah. But to tell us straight, we need to cheat. If not, no ministers can stay in office. It's like telling us go to hell, you know. I mean, what's the job of the election commission? Is it the job of the election commission to run a fair and free election? We say no. The job of the election commission is to make sure UMNO stays in office. To make sure the Malays don't lose political power. After that second question, we closed that thick book. And we said, there's no point to talk anymore. All these other reforms that we want to talk about, is pointless to talk about. It's always been the policy of the Election Commission, and they are not shy or embarrassed about it, and they'll admit openly that this is what they want to do. And we hope that what happened in Sibu can demonstrate to the public the importance of electoral reforms. And of course the gerrymandering. And they do want to gerrymander even more, because they realize they can no longer depend on the non-Malay votes. If Barisan wants to stay in power, it has to be only on the Malay votes. And Sibu has proven this yet again. So they need to gerrymander. They need to redraw the election boundaries. But they do not have 2/3 of parliament at the moment. So they can't. And that is why they want as many Pakatan Rakyat members of parliament to jump over to Barisan. Because they need this extra half a dozen or so to get back their 2/3. Then they're going to redraw the election boundaries. You look at Putrajaya, where 98% of the voters are government officers, 97% are Malays, and only 5,000 voters. Some kotak undi has only got like 7 voters or 8 voters. You think when there's 7 voters in one ballot box, they dare vote opposition? No way. 100% is Barisan Nasional. So the opposition candidate not only loses, but loses his deposit as well. That's how bad he loses. And it's only 5,000 voters. Now, that's a safe seat. I mean, that's a seat that's held by Tengku Adnan, you know. That's a safe seat. Now, what about those dangerous seats? Not safe. Kepong, Selayang, Jinjang. Hardcore. There's 120,000 voters. 120,000 voters. So which means, in a seat where the opposition is strong, they lump 120,000 voters. In a seat where UMNO is strong, they break it up into many, many seats. So you win 120,000 votes, you win 1 seat. I win 120,000 votes, I win 3 seats. So even if you get 60% of the votes, I get only 40% of the votes, I still form the government. That's what has happened. Now, on a smaller scale, that's what happened in Sibu. And I think the opposition now realizes electoral reforms is very, very crucial. And Barisan Nasional realizes also they need to get back their 2/3 before the next election, redraw the election boundaries, so that maybe all those Chinese seats or hardcore opposition seats, they lump them all together. Ambek lah, never mind, 1 seat. You can take all of this, but it's only 1 seat. Mine, I cut. I get 5 seats. Same number of votes, I get 5, you get 1. This is what they're going to do for the next election. And if Sibu is not a wake-up call, if the opposition is still sleeping, then they deserve to lose the next election. To teach them up. And if they do lose the next election, it's going to be at least 30 years before they get back into power again. It won't be so soon. Thank you.